Happy beep, Sam. So, the exam itself, be ready for a practice test, by the way, Gerard. I just let everybody know that. The exam itself will have a choice of multiple choice questions, and you'll have a choice of essay questions. You'll have I think it's like 3 out of 6 essay questions, something along the lines of 8 out of 10 multiple choice questions. So be ready for those, extra credit. The reason I give you only 3 essays and not my usual 4 is because it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday exam. Be thorough on the essays. I mean, you write a sentence or two and you're thinking for 15 to 20 points, that's not a good idea. You know, if you don't even have 15 words, unless you can write for TV Guide, people who can summarize Les Miserables in 2 sentences, you may want to take a little time on the essay. Look at it, think about it, okay? That's the best way to do it. Also, how many of you were able to take your paper to the writing center? Okay, so we have 1. That's not good. How many of you have a paper ready today? Okay, because of the annual report, because of having to write not just your exam, but 2 exams and 2 practice exams, I've got papers from my American government class. I've got tests last week from International Political Economy and Research Methods. I won't be able to get to your papers till Thursday at the earliest. So I can do one of 2 things. Make you turn it in now, and you'll just have to wait till Monday of next week to get it graded. Or you can take it to the writing center today or tomorrow. Turn it in Wednesday. Who's going to do that? Raise your hand if you're going to take it to the writing center. Promise me? I'll know because they give me a report. So get your paper done, get it over to the writing center. Go ahead.
What time do they open and where is that there?
Writing center is right over there, and their hours will be there. So as you leave today, go over by the writing center, take a look over there, make an appointment. Okay? Today, tomorrow. Can y'all do that? How would y'all like to vote in an early election?
I would.
Yeah, man. Okay. I've got a choice of trying to put together 2 CE events. How many of y'all need CE credits? Cultural enrichment credits, most of y'all do. I can do 1 of 2 events today, whichever wins the election today, so don't do any ballot stuffing because I'll know who's here and who isn't. I want you to tell me which you would prefer. Watching the Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton tonight, and I'll put in for a CE event, emergency, last minute, help, rush. Or have our own election discussion. And by that I mean, we show up and I'll be like a moderator, but nobody's gonna come up with 20 PowerPoint slides. We'll turn all the chairs around the circle and we'll just discuss what we're thinking of the election, what y'all think, what your observations are. So go ahead and vote. So pass it around. Just, you don't have to put your name, just put a little hash mark, a smiley face, a squiggly line, whatever you need to do to indicate a vote for somebody else, or for one of these. Okay, so we got Bruno. We have Tony for some. You got Alex, Brittany, you got Megan, there you go, yeah, half hour early. Oh, Jacob's it. Okay, so we only have 3 people not here. If these folks come on in, if certainly you'll be on videotape. I apologize if we're a little late on getting slides up. It is not something due to me. It's the person who was pulling this stuff off had been putting on an external hard drive, and the external hard drive got corrupted, so they're ordering a new one today. This person is going out of her way to save things to her desktop. I got her an extra flash drive, so we're trying to work on getting those slides on up. But again, the slides aren't meant to be the leader on this. They're meant to be a backup. Okay, the lead is obviously showing on up, which most of you have a very good track record of doing. Just be on the safe side. And I told this person, I said, please get me everything this Wednesday. We have both of my videotape classes have lectures. I think we have everything through at least mid-month. But don't wait on it. Just get with somebody else. If you've missed a class or 2, get with them about the material. We're doing everything we can to get everything up by Wednesday. Okay? Just let you know, it's not like I'm sitting around like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll load that up later. Actually, that was first thing went into that person's library and going, what you got for me? I need it now. So that's okay. Okay, good, so we only have 2 people now. So for new people, vote for which CE option you want, and I'll be putting in for that today. All right, we've got 2 things to discuss today. We've got Thomas Jefferson, and we've got Alexis de Tocqueville. So we've got race and gender politics, so nothing controversial. Okay, wish I had a more exciting, visceral topic to By the way, when I came down here and I joined church, and before most people realized what I was doing on this campus, and most people didn't know who I was, wandered around this campus, all I got from everybody is, whatever you do, don't talk about religion and politics. And I thought, great, I'm going to teach political science at a religious institution. This is going to be a toughie. So, how about them, Auburn, Georgia, whatever. Because that's what I'm left with. Now, what we do is we confront issues. I'm not going to say we have a safe space. I'm not going to say we have an unsafe space. But read the stuff, think about it. Speculate on it. I know we get a lot of people who are kind of nervous about topics. I can be a little freewheeling, but I understand that, people have also had struggles in their life. My job is to not make things safe or unsafe. In fact, that's why I focus heavily on the analytical model, so that we can take a look at things from sort of a scientific standpoint. Because that takes some of the passions and emotions we have out of a debate. We all come in with different life experiences. We're not here to say one side is right or wrong about our opinions on the subject, which is why we try and look at, what does the evidence show us? What does the data show us? Sometimes we look at numbers like we do for education and income. Sometimes we'll look at things qualitatively, like we will today, when we don't have number crunching, but we have subjects just as important to talk about. Quality arguments are not just judged by critical thinking and how well you communicate them, but creatively. Not just the left side of the brain, but the right side of the brain, so you get some balance. The more creative you come up with your arguments, the better. If you really, really, really want to impress the hell out of me, come up with some really good points in class discussion that show some creativity, that show some thoughts, even better, put them on the exam. I love that stuff. I try and grade your papers. This is how I grade them. I get the multiple choice stuff. I grade them up on front. I flip it so I don't know who you are. I'm grading your essays not based on anything about you. But if you write something really good, I'll mark it up real big, like, wow, that's like really impressive. Because after all the grades are in, and I've tallied up all the grades, I want to know who the heck put this thing. You might have like a 10 out of 15 or so, but if you've got some really good creative point that nobody's thought of, that we haven't even brought up in class, a really innovative way of thinking about something, you can make a few points back up with that. Don't be too creative where you're like, okay, that's TMI, too much. So think about it that way. Honestly, I don't know any other way to cover controversial topics like what we're going to cover today. So do the best you can with it. I found that overwhelmingly, the majority of college students, when handling touchy subjects like this, tend to be very much likely to be professional about this. And that comes from, it's kind of tough to read about it, the founding father, Thomas Jefferson. I mean, geez, what, we got him on a nickel, we got him on a $2 bill, we got him on Mount Rushmore. He's the author of our Declaration of Independence. We got all that, right? I mean, he's someone who's supposed to embody America, right? Someone that we're supposed to look up to. Did you all have Thomas Jefferson covered when you went to school, grade school? Yeah, you didn't cover him?
Somewhat.
Germany didn't cover him? You didn't go, look at all about Thomas Jefferson? You did? Well, I covered Bismarck in my international conflict classes. Where's the fair play?
We all had, most of what we learned was World War II stuff.
World War II stuff, okay, that's cool. Like Eisenhower, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Eisenhower belongs, if we had a second Mount Rushmore, if we ever were cool enough to come up with another one, we got to put him up there. Y'all covered, okay, so if you weren't raised in Germany, what'd y'all get about Thomas Jefferson? Okay, so definitely covered. Did you get covered in grade school? Okay. Okay, that's an example of good creative. Okay, evidently we didn't get everything about him. Okay, very good. I have to remember that. By the way, my son is in 4th grade, and he's showing me all his stuff about the Constitution and the amendments and what the Constitution actually says. And I was like, wow, this is real detailed information. His teacher got all her stuff from me, by the way. Because I teach K-5 education. And a brand new teacher came in saying, help, I need all the help I can get. And so I said, well, I teach the subjects that you teach. Can you phone this and get back to... I said, I teach all of these subjects. And so, you want my PowerPoints? Oh, yeah, sure. And so I gave it all to her. She's probably more entertaining than for teaching my son than I am. What else? Did y'all cover him in middle school, high school?
High school.
High school. Did they cover the same thing? Here's the Declaration of Independence. Which dollar bill is Jefferson featured on? Anybody know? Yeah, y'all know that? Okay. It's hard to find $2 bills. If you find one, hold on to them. They're pretty rare. I remember finding one for the first time. I thought it was like some amazing keepsake. My grandfather, who's my political mentor, said, cool, you can go to the racetrack now. I had no idea what the heck he meant. I was like 10 years old or something. But evidently $2 bets are a big thing. So yeah, he's on a $2 bill. I remember when they talked about Harriet Tubman being on the $20 bill. Someone who opposed that said, we'll just stick her on the $2 bill. I just thought it was interesting. How many of you knew anything about Thomas Jefferson that was negative before you took this class? How many of you ever heard anything negative? What you got, Jake?
I just heard, like, he was against the whole slave trade, like, he didn't have to have slaves to keep his financial status secure.
So you learned he was a slave owner. How many knew he was a slave owner before you took this class? Raise your hand high. I mean, I'm not going to like grade you one way or the other. Okay, so some of y'all had, right? Okay. So you had the slaveholder thing. And we'll get to the slave trade bit in just a second because that's pretty important for the exam. Spoiler alert. Speaking of which, if you came in late, see me afterwards because I need to tell you a few things. And then you've got this. What year is it written anyway? Y'all got that?
No,
Yeah, Notes on the State of Virginia. When's it written? It's what? Ballpark figure. What you got?
What was the question now?
Yeah, when's it written? What you got, Kadarius? Notes on the State of Virginia. 1785. So 2 years after our real Independence Day, which is my birthday, never celebrated.
no.
Seriously, September 3rd, 1783, Treaty of Paris is signed. Britain gives us our independence. Nobody celebrates my birthday. September 3rd. That's bigger than July 4th. We declared our independence. We won it on September 3rd. Man, that's why they give us Labor Day then, I suppose. I was born on Labor Day. No irony. So he's writing it. It's important to note this. Okay, so he's writing in 1785. So, is he president then? No. Okay, somebody look up when he's president. Or do you know? Are you a trivia geek like me? And you can name all the years that presidents were in office? Don't worry, we'll need to know this a little later. So somebody look up when Thomas Jefferson was president. Nobody knows it?
1801.
1801, good. Until,
1809.
whoa, that was like really good. Oh, did it say in the book?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, book. Don't thank me, thank the book. Okay, so this is a long time before he's president. All right, I got all the basic stuff out of the way. Now let's get into the touchy subject. What is he writing about? What is he? He's writing about characteristics between blacks and whites.
He wrote that blacks are like unequal and should be up to the same like expectations.
He writes about a lot of inequality. Does he say that blacks are unequal in everything? Does he say they're unequal in some things? Okay, what's he talking about? Now keep in mind, Jefferson fancies himself the scientist type. You know, he's plantation owner, he's like a Renaissance man. Part architect, part plantation owner, part biology major, part scientist. So he fancied himself a scientist. So what he's doing is, in notes on the state of Virginia, he's trying to say, here's all the stuff I've been observing. I don't just sit around drinking mint juleps on my plantation porch house. I go walking around and I start writing all this stuff down. So this is what I've observed. So it's what he considers his scientific writing. It's like, well, this is what I've noticed around the plantation. And that's what all these documents are. So in what ways does he say blacks are superior to whites in anything? Yeah. The what?
Music and dance.
Okay. So he mentions that, which is interesting because you're one of the few students who's ever said that. Because Jefferson writes about a lot of things. See, most people look at this and they're like, "Oh my gosh, he says blacks are inferior about everything." Probably comes from that quote that they have at the beginning of the table of contents, which we'll get to in just a second. Oh, that's right. You're like research. You wrote like a whole page on this. That'll help for the essay. Oops, spoiler alert.
He said they're pretty equal in some things too.
Equal in some things. He says that blacks are superior to music and dance. He also says there's something else, that blacks are superior to whites, or better at than whites.
More adventuresome.
More adventuresome. Now, y'all are from the South. Raise your hand if you're from the South. I think Bruno and I are about the only ones who aren't. And Andy. We have several kids who are from India, but they were born and raised in the South. You know, so my son and my daughter are born in the South, even if my wife and I are from like the North. So y'all know what a backhanded compliment is, right? What's a backhanded compliment? It's a Southernism, as my wife has pointed out. My wife lived in the South Park when she was, you know, just a few months old. They moved to Jacksonville, Florida, so she knows what a backhanded compliment is. Go ahead, Dina.
It's a compliment, but not really a compliment.
Okay, it's a compliment, but not really a compliment. So he says, blacks are more adventuresome. You know, it's sort of like, here's your compliment, and then, you're great. I don't know what the notion would be, but it's a plus and a minus. What's the backhanded part of it? Blacks are more adventuresome.
It possibly could only come from their want of forethought, which prevents them from seeing danger until it's present.
Okay, what the hell does that mean? Outside of King's English.
We don't really know what we're getting ourselves into.
More foolhardy and risky. You're more adventuresome, but you're also insanely risky. Or something like that. You're like Brett Favre or James Winston or something like that. You'll take risks, but you also take bad risks. Yeah, so a compliment, but a backhanded compliment. What does he say that blacks are inferior to? Whites. It's kind of insulting. That's probably why y'all are being quiet, right? It's not that you didn't do the reading.
He's saying like thinking analytically pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, so he's he talks about thought. All right. I don't know if did he actually say analytical?
It
I know
wasn't
he did say-
analytical, but
he did say-
it's thought to it.
I agree. What else?
Talks about like the way situations are handled. Says they do not go through it with more coolness or steadiness than the whites.
So more Brett Favre than Aaron Rodgers. If you're a Green Bay Packer fan like me, born in Wisconsin this evening. One's more risk-taking, one's more risk-averse.
we don't know anything about poetry.
Don't know the, better at music and dance, not as good at poetry.
What? It's a lot.
They secrete less by the kidneys and more by the glands of the skin, which gives them a very strong anti-secretory.
I mean, come on. Not only are you enslaving someone, but you're gonna like kick someone while they're down. It's like, now I had a football player who was taking this a couple years ago. When he read this, he goes, sure, blacks sweat a lot more because you're, while he's sitting up watching and writing stuff down up on the porch, you're out working. What do you expect? Where the situation's reversed, you might see something different. If you don't believe me, catch up with me about 6:45 when I'm done running down in the Henry dorm. Even I don't want to be near myself. Thank God they have a shower in this library. I don't think I can make it all the way down to the swimming pool. I mean, let's face it, when you work out, that's what you need. But he's making it sound like he generalizes it to the entire race.
Blacks require less sleep. He said, like, after a long
Yeah,
day.
if you work somebody, pretty looking at it.
You just stay up all night and talk. Even though they know you have to get up in the morning.
Although that sounds like you're kind of thinking, you're having discussion, maybe some critical thinking goes on. All you can see is the light going on. You don't know what you're saying.
And he did say that, like, he said blacks don't think about, they don't reflect on things, they just sleep when they don't have anything else to do. They don't sit up and think, they just sleep.
He said that their love was different. It was ridiculous. Said that love seems to them to be more of an eager desire than a tender, delicate mixture of sentiment and sensation.
I mean, that's what he's doing. He's going around, he's like, well, here's what I think. I mean, at this point, he's part Peter Griffin. What's the name of the show? I would say Futurama, but that's not right. Family Guy, that's right. The other F word. I mean, that was not. Yeah, Family. So he's kind of like these guys. It doesn't sound like Thomas Jefferson. It sounds more Homer Simpson. Here's what I think. Someone who would be good on talk show radio. What do you make of all this? I mean, now you've heard what he's saying stuff. What's your conclusion? It's our founding father. By the way, he wrote about a lot of stuff. I know because if you lose your book and you try and read the article on what, I mean, it's a big old book. He wrote about everything. He wandered all around. He wrote about just about everything. He wrote about geological formations. He wrote about, what's the best way to raise certain animals. He just wrote about everything. So we're getting an excerpt from it. Very controversial excerpt.
This is just the ignorance. He doesn't really know. He's just going on.
Yeah.
Easy.
He's speculating. I'm glad you mentioned that. Go to the beginning of your book. I mean, save your place, obviously, but go to the very beginning of your Rereading America book and look at the little excerpt that they have. You know how they do this for every reading you have in the table of contents? Look at the quote. They usually work in the most controversial quote. Like, Brandon, you're reading something about, I just want to be average. Did that get you oh, I want to read that. I want to work that into my first paper.
The title, dude.
The title. Oh, okay. So the title got you. If the title doesn't get you, the abstract will. And they have his big quote. This is this, not sucker you in. It's to get you to want to read this. And it'll oh my gosh, I can't believe he said this. What's supposed to be the most controversial part. Now, at the very beginning of Rereading America. Y'all got that? What does it say? This stuff is very controversial, but in more ways than one. I like your shirt, by the way, Alex. You need to find where you got it. Although it's not insulated, is it? What do y'all got for me? That controversial quote.
I advance it, therefore, as a suspicion only that the blacks are inferior to the whites in the endowments both of body and mind.
Can you read that for me again, Andy? Read that quote again for me, real slow. Everybody listen. Jot it on me.
I advance it, therefore, as a suspicion only that the blacks are inferior to the whites in the endowments both of body and mind.
What are you hearing? Somebody who hadn't spoken yet, because y'all got this down pat. This row's mostly on fire, but somebody who hadn't spoken yet. You hear that? What's it mean? What's it mean to you? What are you focusing on? What words? It's a good choice by Rereading America, because this is the most controversial passage, but more ways than one.
It says suspect in there, right?
You know, most people don't, Jacob, most people don't focus on that part.
Well, it's about, when I hear suspect, I think like suspicion, like you have no proof.
Yeah, I advance it merely as a suspicion only. This is why it's doubly controversial. He said a lot of controversial things. He gave a lot of backhanded compliments to African Americans. He said a lot of below-the-belt comments. And then, I advance it merely as a suspicion only. If I used a term for you called eugenics, would you know what I was talking about? Raise your hand if you've ever heard that term. Eugenics. EU has nothing to do with the European Union. Genics. Never heard of eugenics? None of y'all have? No biology majors, no sociology, no? Nobody's heard of eugenics.
Not that I know of.
Really? This is like my first class. Nobody knew what eugenics were. Well, my wife got her master's degree in anthropology at Florida State University. So they covered it a lot. I guess we don't have an anthropology class or so. That's why I asked about sociology, but biology. If I said racial eugenics, would that give you a hint? Because sometimes people use racial eugenics, though it could be applied to ethnic groups. Nobody? Or is it too controversial, you just don't want to say it?
Is it like your biological makeup that we're talking about?
Yeah, it's people were doing early well, I shouldn't say early they thought what they were doing was scientific proof. They tried to look for differences among the races. And they tried to prove, and I use that term the way people irresponsibly use it, they tried to prove that one race was superior to the other. Racial eugenics. And this is, this is not like you'd have like British anthropologists, European anthropologists, American anthropologists, or not just anthropologists, other kinds of scientists. And they would do all kinds of scientific tests to see which race was superior. Now do you see why this is a controversial time? My wife told me about one of these studies that they looked at all these studies that people used to do, not in a positive way at all. But I think it came up at Florida State University because they had a Florida State University biology professor basically wrote the introduction to David Duke's latest white supremacy book. Let me tell you, Florida State, they were like mortified. Like, I mean, when you've got tenure, you do have academic freedom, and you do have every right to write about just about any old opinion. But our president was saying, we're not, obviously he's got tenure, he's got a contract, we're not firing him, but we just want to put it out there that he doesn't speak for Florida State University. He's one guy. And his views don't necessarily represent anything on the campus. They were so embarrassed. I was working in public relations for FSU. That's not a good day. I mean, you know who David Duke is, right? He's even been ejected in this election, right? In terms of, where he stands on white supremacy and whether one candidate will denounce him or not. And that's not, I'm not here to say that one way or the other. I'm just saying he's a fairly controversial person. Would it surprise you that this professor was Jewish? Even though a lot of David Duke's work kind of feeds its way into neo-Nazi literature. That made it doubly controversial.
Yeah.
My wife told me a little bit about it. So they studied some racial eugenics. She told me about a study that they read in the, I believe it was in the 1800s that they did. They wanted to see who was more intelligent. Are you ready for this? Get your analytical thinking caps on. They basically got skulls, hopefully for people who just were deceased by natural causes. They got skulls of whites and blacks. Got a whole bunch of rice grains, filled the skulls with rice grains, and they tried to see which skull held more, and that was a measure of intelligence. Whichever skull held more, you're laughing, why? Because that meant more room for brain power. Maybe it was 1700s.
It's like taking a cadaver and be like, hey, the more Skittles we can fit here, the more muscle mass this person can have. I mean, Never
Put
do,
that
never
on the
there.
exam so I can remember
Never
that.
there.
I've never had somebody put it quite that way. But you get the idea, right? You're like, okay, so that determines intelligence by how much rice you can theoretically hold in your head. And just to let you know, I have a big head. Like, I can't fit into most caps. Like, most caps, I have to, like, go, see, mine is, like, stretched at the end. Sometimes they just fall off because I need the biggest possible cap. You should see the hats I get, like a fedora. I mean, it fall off most people's heads. Doesn't mean I'm smarter. Although I have had people say that because I have a big head, it must mean I'm smarter.
Doing your speculation.
Yeah. I mean, a stegosaurus had a much bigger head than me, but I mean, that didn't help it in the brain power department. But that's what people did. Years later, when they tried to replicate the study, you know what replicate means? Any of y'all science types, what does replicate mean?
Just like copy it, pretty much.
Yeah, tried to do the same thing, and they got like a series of skulls. They even got the original skulls, like from the 1700s, you know, because they were putting plasma in. So they didn't get like modern day skulls. They got the skulls from whenever it was, the 1700s. Did the rice test. Fake! White heads cannot hold more rice than black heads. Somebody was cooking the books. Nobody's head significantly holds more rice, as if that were a measure of intelligence. But that's racial eugenics. Racial eugenics was most like around during Jefferson's time. But think about, what was that phrase he said again? I advance it. So he said a lot of below the belt comments, but he also said he suspected. See, you weren't supposed to suspect. So this is going to get him in trouble with blacks for what he said, and it's going to get him in trouble for whites. First off, he said whites were better, or blacks were better at some things than whites, which is very controversial. Then he said for all this stuff that whites were better, he just thought it was a suspicion. I think. I mean, people use the word proof in racial eugenics. This is scientific proof of superiority. And he's saying, I think it might be. That's pretty controversial stuff.
Yeah, especially from somebody who wrote that all men are created equal and we hold these truths evident.
That all men are created equal. And here he's saying, I think whites are superior to blacks. And he said, merely as a suspicion only. He must have known somewhere in the back of his mind that whatever was going on, you couldn't really tell. I bet you he didn't want this stuff out there for whites or blacks to. It's a cartoon that I had. I don't have it up here, but it was where Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration of Independence. He said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal." And a small African American child's knocking on the window saying, "Daddy, I'm cold." Dad, have you heard about this? Well, this was also revealed in the 1990s when I was in graduate school, that somebody went back to the family tree and they discovered that Jefferson had some biracial kids. Again, also not public knowledge. Certainly none of these things he probably wanted out there in his presidential campaign in 1800, which was already a pretty contentious thing. He did not win by much.
That's funny that that would be a thing, and then he would stay in here once they were free. Like, they needed to completely be gone because there couldn't be any mixing of the
Oh,
races.
you are advancing the discussion on to the next part, which is, he did say free the slaves, did he not?
They did.
I mean, he's a slave owner, he's saying we need to free the slaves. Keep in mind, this almost kept us from having a U.S. Constitution or a united America. The issue with slavery almost undid the United States. Did I talk about 3/5 in this class? Did I tell this class this? You know the 3/5 compromise? Anybody ever heard of 3/5 compromise? Yeah, when they're hashing out over a few weeks the U.S. Constitution, they're throwing it together. Northerners and Southerners could not agree. They were at each other's throats. Where is Jefferson? Well, actually, he's in Paris, and if you watch the movie Jefferson in Paris, he's not staying true to his wife, but that's another story. This is Jefferson. He's the ambassador to Paris during this time. It's a key position. You know, ambassador to France. So he's not there for the big debate. And I mean, Northerners and Southerners are at each other's throats. Northerners wanted slaves to be free. Southerners didn't. Southerners wanted more votes. Northerners said, double standard. You ever heard the phrase, have my cake and eat it too, Jordan? What does that mean? You ever heard that one?
I mean, it's basically, sorry.
Anybody heard that phrase before? I want my cake and eat it too. We need a better phrase for it because that just doesn't make as much sense. But you've heard the phrase, you know what it means? You want it both ways. See, Southerners wanted slaves to be counted as people so they could get more votes, but they didn't want to give any voting rights or freedom to the actual slaves. You got me on this? And the Southerners were willing to walk out. They wanted political power, but they wanted to keep blacks powerless. And Northerners are like, hey, you know, if you want to count these people as representatives, you got to free them and pay them. No, we can't do that. That'll ruin our economic livelihood. So the U.S. almost didn't exist. Then Ben Franklin came on in. Ben Franklin was always good at whenever people couldn't decide on something, Ben Franklin would say something that would mollify both sides. This is what Ben Franklin did. That's why he gets on the $100 bill even though he's never president. Oh, and also got France on our side, which helped us in the American Revolution. He did a lot of cool things. This is what Ben Franklin said. He said, well, you know, over in the Middle East, like North African countries that were Muslim countries, whenever they take Christians as slaves, you know, they kidnap them from boats. Some they shipped it all the way up to Ireland. They're one of the first countries to be fighting as a new country, by the way, over this very issue. He said, you know, when Muslims take Christians and they enslave them, and not all Muslims do this, but the leaders of Tripoli and Algeria and Tunisia were doing it. Some from Morocco. They said, when they get Christian slaves, you know, in terms of tax purposes, they count slaves as 3/5 of a person. So that's why you get the 3/5 compromise. So slaves wouldn't be counted as a full person for political rights. They wouldn't be counted as free, but they would be counted as 60% of a person. Years later, somebody looked it up and they found out that Franklin lied. He just made it up. There's no evidence ever for that. But he realized America was bursting at the seams, so a little white lie wouldn't hurt. No, I don't know if that's where the term white lie comes from. But that kept us from going to war until 1860. So Jefferson is actually going against his Southerners. He's saying slaves should be free. Think about what that means. Yay, political power. No, it's a loss of economic power. That means he is freeing his own slaves. Correct. But what does he say should be done with the freed slaves afterwards? The what?
Moved away.
Moved away. So they should be free to move. Where to? Africa. And when they go over to Africa, is this like, all right, you're free, now get the heck out of our country? Is that what he's saying? What's he calling for? He's got a policy. What y'all find when you read this?
He wanted to establish a colony over there.
Establish a colony. Do you know what that means? When have you ever heard of somebody establishing a colony? Do we have any historical examples? Yeah, Britain and India, Britain and the U.S., Britain and America. I mean, you get people from your country and you go over and you militarily conquer a region, and then you serve. You know, you serve as somebody abroad who's like it's your power abroad. It's one way that you can project power if you're a country. We don't have any colonies. Hell, we just used to be a colony. But shortly thereafter, Jefferson's already saying, we need a colony in Africa. Why can't people who are black stay in America? To quote Rodney King, why can't we all just get along? Freeing the slaves, why do they have to go over to Africa? First off, does he say just send them over to Africa? What's the plan?
He wants to preserve he wants to preserve their race, he wants to preserve the black race, so.
Well, sort of, not just that. I mean, he's like, okay, yeah, you'll go on over, but you're just going over to Africa empty-handed? What's he suggest? He even spells it all out. I mean, it's not like hidden. Sure, okay, racial eugenics weren't listed on this, in this text, but he gives a specific plan. Blacks will go over and they'll get, y'all can't lean on me all day. Your vocal cords must be getting tired. Y'all catch it? Gonna send people on over. They're gonna have what? You'll get seeds. Remember how important seeds are to the U.S. colony, all those tobacco seeds from Native Americans, those corn seeds, really important stuff. You'll get tools. You'll get this has got to be real controversial. Tools and seeds and bang! Guns. Okay, so you're going to free slaves and give them guns. Like, this is Jefferson. It's 1784, folks. It's like, holy crap. You're going to arm them? So they'll go over and they'll conquer. And then not only that, they'll get all the, and then we'll form a military alliance over in Africa. This is a power projection. We're going to have a little bit of America over in Africa. But why can't people live together? He's saying he doesn't think blacks and whites can live together. Why not? What does he say? Is it too controversial? You got that part. Blacks and white, he doesn't think blacks and whites can live together. He thinks it's a cool idea that we would have some colony, and this is good for power projections. But why not at home? Why not just create a part of America? We'll call it Ohio. That's where blacks can.
Because it says the slave, when made free, might mix with without staining the blood of his master. But with us, a second is necessary. When freed, he is removed beyond the reach of mixture.
Interesting, given his choices. Why whites and blacks can't mix. Yet he does. So it can't be just that. It can't just be saying that it's bad to have biracial people.
He said too that he doesn't want, he doesn't think that they would have good racial relations, like they would all in conflict.
I agree, but I agree that that's what he's saying. I don't agree with his argument. But why? Why can't blacks and whites live together? It can't be this racial superiority stuff. It can't be that the races can't mix, because he's invalidated both of those already. And how seriously can he say blacks are bad people if he wants them to be our military allies in conquering the continent of Africa? Or at least a part of it. It's got to be something else. Can you all dig through and find it? Time's ticking down. You got to know it for the exam. Bring your books. Do y'all have books? Bring them to class. I see a bunch of you have books. Yeah, I'm even letting you use books that you can buy on Amazon, like older versions of the book. Did y'all know that? You don't have to buy the, although if you did. Yeah, look, there you go. That's like from 34 years ago. That's why I keep assigning this book. I can assign any book I want. I can assign the latest 2016 book that'll cost $80. I assigned one that you can bring in for far cheaper. What does it say? I just want you to read. I don't want you to, I'd rather you read than spend tons of money. can't we all just get along? According to Jefferson.
Different species of the same genus or variations of the same species may possess different qualifications. Will not a lover of natural history then one who, this unfortunate difference of color and perhaps of faculty is a powerful obstacle to the emancipation of these people.
Wait, what's the obstacle?
The difference of color.
But, I mean, he's already invalidating that, personally. And I get you, STEM majors and fine arts majors don't always get along together, or is that not true? We could start a whole debate about opposites attract. But why can't we all get along? You haven't found it yet. Elizabeth, what have you uncovered? You've been reading furiously. Well, not furiously, but intently. What do we got? Why does he think blacks and whites can't get together? Why can't we live in the same country? He's saying a lot of things. I guess he's like, I said a lot of controversial things. Well, I guess blacks and whites can't mix. Invalidated, not just by Jefferson personally, but by a lot of plantation owners. You ever heard of Strom Thurmond? Ardent segregationist South Carolina senator? He had biracial kids too. He's like ground zero for segregation. He ran as a Dixiecrat for president, for crying out loud. Yes, he's got biracial kids. Not an accident. It can't be a mixing thing. It can't be a biological thing. It's got to be something else.
But could it possibly be because there were relations between them that he'd be afraid of an uprising?
Oh, you were really close. Yeah, it's about history. When one side has enslaved another, he admits slavery is cruel. You've deprived one group of their freedom. When somebody wins their freedom, he doesn't think that it's going to be all hunky-dory afterwards. He says it's that history we have. Keep in mind how long Jamestown Colony had been around. We're talking not quite 200 years, but at least 150 years of slavery in the United States. He doesn't think that the groups can get along because of that, the weight of history.
Prejudices.
Yeah, prejudices that whites have against blacks that Jefferson sometimes displays in this writing. Okay, not sometimes. Maybe not. But also the fact that blacks are like, you imprisoned me. You forced me to work. You split up my family. He doesn't think we can do it. Pessimism. There are even people today who say that whites and blacks can't get along. There are people who say there needs to be segregation. There are people in the black community and white community who say there needs to be a separation. Whites and blacks just can't get along for whatever reason. Others think differently. We'll talk about that tomorrow a little bit before we get to Alexis de Tocqueville. So jot down reading Alexis de Tocqueville for tomorrow. We'll save Jean Kilburn for a little later this semester. I don't want to give her short shrift. She's got some good points to say. But Alexis de Tocqueville tomorrow. But in our remaining time, I want you to tell me, when was the slave trade outlawed? We've got two last things to look at. Wait, slave trade outlawed? When was slave trade outlawed? Anybody? Go ahead, throw it out there. The what?
It was a lot later than you think.
Later or earlier? The slave trade. What do we got for the slave trade? Go ahead. 1807, the slave trade was made illegal in the United States. Did you all know that? Don't zip up your bag just yet until you get that information down there. Did you get that? 1807. That meant it was a crime to bring a slave to the United States in 1808. Signed in 1807, took effect 1808. Yeah, if you would go to jail for bringing a slave to the United States in 1808. Did you all know that? Did you know? Really?
Well, I remember talking about it in high school that like it was, yeah, it was
Almost nobody comes in.
illegal way back when, but it didn't fully go into effect.
I get answers like from the American Revolution time, very rarely. Most of the ones people say are Emancipation Proclamation, right? Or 13th Amendment. They've watched the Lincoln movie. No, this is the slave trade. That meant it was illegal. Not only that, we actually committed a section of the U.S. Navy. It's called the African Squadron. They would patrol off the west coast of Africa. Anybody from the U.S., Britain, France, Portugal, Spain, who were bringing slaves on over, our Navy would catch them. And they were, you'd be in prison for smuggling. Contraband. That's where the phrase contraband comes from. When applied to blacks being brought on over. It was illegal. That's why a lot of auction houses, you ever see them? After 1808, bringing people on over, most of them had to go underground. Now, it was meant to be a good thing. In fact, so wait, when was Jefferson president?
1801.
1801 till
1809.
1809. So this is at the beginning of his administration, first 100 days. I'm going to get rid of slavery. Did he do it? How about when he's running for re-election in 1804? Nope. You see, Jefferson knew that if you want to do something controversial, you wait till like the last minute to do something. So when Obama gets rid of all guns in America, he's going to wait until after the election, right? His last month in office. Because I keep hearing that he's going to get rid of guns, so that's about his only time left to do it, right? Sign a law banning all guns, right? Executive order. Constitutional amendments, these things take years. You need House and Senate and 3/5 of state legislature, or 75% of state legislature, so it won't go through. But you pack a few controversial things in at the end of your administration. So that's when Jefferson decided to do it, when he's on his way out. So why do we still have slavery? He actually thought, people thought if you ban the slave trade, slavery will die out on its own. Did slavery die out on its own? Did we still have slaves in 1860 when the Civil War was declared? Yeah, lots of them. Where'd they come from then? We got Navy ships patrolling to stop them from coming in. Well, sometimes forcibly. Sometimes, you ever hear this phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions? You ever hear that? People, their good intention was they thought, okay, if we outlaw the slave trade, this will kind of, after a while, no new slaves coming in, the slaves will all, either be freed by their masters in their will, or slaves will die on out, no new slaves coming in. That'll stop the slave trade. Well, anybody know what happened? No, it's not your book, I just didn't know if y'all knew. People bred slaves, broke up families to do so. So what they did is they just took people out, they're like separating husbands from wives, separating kids from their parents. Nobody thought anybody'd stoop so low, but yet it happened. And I figure one more thing about how African Americans had it better under slavery, which I read plenty of things about, and every so often somebody will put it on their Twitter account. It's like, really? Just think about being torn apart from your family. Just think about working all day, often under cruel conditions without pay. You think that's better? Why don't you do it? Why didn't you get your family to do it if it was so much better? That's what I was thinking. There's a reason we outlawed slavery. Of course, there is slavery today. You all know that, right? Maybe you know it better than I do. Is there slavery in the world and in America? You're nodding your heads. What you thinking, Tony?
I know that there's slavery in the world. It has to be.
And there's slavery right here. What do we call it? We don't call it slavery. Yeah, human trafficking. It's big problem. LaGrange College students have researched that. We actually present our research out in Las Vegas, present our research over in Savannah, over in Alabama about where slave trade is occurring in the United States and which factors are leading to it. Because yeah, we've got human trafficking, not just some faraway country like Indonesia. We're talking like, we're talking at Farmington, Georgia. We're talking about up in Atlanta. It's not out in the open. It doesn't mean it's not there. Some states, we research why some states are better at passing laws to stop it. Some got on top of it, they got embarrassed by it. Others, it's not a problem, so you don't pass a law. That's where it occurs. Y'all have a good day. We'll chat just a tiny bit about Liberia at the beginning, and then we'll get to Alexis de Tocqueville, and I promise you, a Warner Brothers cartoon. You know, like Bugs Bunny, Carolyn? Oh, and a practice test, so all those who were in late. So you voted? Tony, you voted? Okay, you got to talk about a little bit. Wes, haven't made it late yet? Remember, take off early. You got it? Okay, good. I'll catch up with you later. All right. Okay, for all those who were in late, you get time to take your paper to the writing center today. Because I won't have time to grade it until Wednesday, and I've got like other exams I've got stuff to do today. And so I would start grading it sometime on Wednesday. So why not get a chance? Only 2 people have had a chance to take their paper over to the writing center. Well, one, maybe 2. The person was kind of like this. Maybe they took it to somebody for 10 seconds, who knows. But get your paper, take it to the writing center. Get it, take a look over it. Sound good?
So if you in on Wednesday?
Yeah, bring it in on Wednesday. I know I'm pushing back the deadline, but all it would do is just sit in my office otherwise.
Okay, so you don't want us to put it on Connect?
Well, put it on Connect when it's ready. If you got one up on draft, that's fine. When you've got it all fixed up, take the draft down, put the real one in. Sound good?
Draft and bring it in.
Or no, post the final version. Take the draft down, put the final version up on Connect. And if you bring in a copy, I can grade it faster.
Okay, so I can find, mine's already turned in on Connect.
Okay. Did you get a chance to somebody to look it over? Take a shot. Okay. So you've got that extra time while I grade other things this week. But seriously, I wouldn't be able to start until Wednesday. So I'm thinking there's 2 things I can do. One, give you all a little more time to get into the writing center. If I give you that time, will you take advantage of this? Y'all will? Maybe you've already taken it there. Take advantage of that, okay? Sound good?
I work Monday and Tuesday before it's
Good.
So Wednesday I can take it to the writing center, but it won't be in on Wednesday. Is it okay?
Like, what do you mean by in on Wednesday?
Meaning I'll be out only an hour after I.
No, you need to, it's already been written, right? You already have it right?
Yes.
Good. Well, then what you need to do is you need to get it over to